Imagine as the sun's first light kisses the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, for colossal faces emerge from the ancient granite. This is Mount Rushmore, a silent sentinel watching over the sprawling black hills of South Dakota. For nearly a century, these stoic figures, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln, have gazed out, their expressions a blend of solemnity and resolve. They are more than just stone. They are a testament to a nation's story, carved into the very heart of the American landscape. But as you stand in awe before them, a question naturally surfaces whispering on the wind. Why these four men? Out of all the figures who have shaped history, why were their likenesses chosen to be immortalized on this grand natural canvas? And why here, in the sacred wilderness of the Black Hills? This isn't just a story about carving a mountain. It's a journey into the soul of an idea. It's a tale of ambition, artistry, controversy, and the enduring power of symbolism. Join me as we peel back the layers of rock and time to uncover the motivations, the struggles, and the vision behind one of the world's most recognizable monuments. We'll explore how this audacious dream became a granite reality and what it truly means to etch a legacy into the earth itself. This is a story of art, patriotism, and the complex currents of history that converged on a single, majestic peak. Let's begin our exploration into the heart of the granite giants. To understand Mount Rushmore, we must first travel back to the 1920s, a time of booming optimism in America. The idea didn't spring from a politician or a historian, but from a man named Don Robinson, the superintendent of the South Dakota State Historical Society. Robinson had a vision, but it wasn't initially of presidents. He wanted to create a tourist attraction, something that would draw people from all over the country to the remote beauty of his state. His initial concept was to carve the likenesses of local Western heroes figures like Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea, and Red Cloud II. The granite spires known as the Needles. He believed this would be a fitting tribute to the spirit of the West. However, when he approached the sculptor Gutzon Borglum with his idea, Borglum saw something different. He saw a grander, more universal potential. Borglum, a man of immense talent and equally immense ego, argued that to attract the nation, the monument must represent the nation. It couldn't just be a regional tribute. It had to be a shrine to democracy itself. He convinced Robinson and the other project leaders that the subjects should be figures of national significance, men who represented the founding, expansion, preservation, and unification of the United States. The focus shifted from Western heroes to the presidents who embodied these core principles. Borglum's vision was more than just a tourist draw. He aimed to create a timeless masterpiece that would communicate the ideals of America for thousands of years to come. But why this specific location? The original site in the Needles was deemed fragile. The granite was weathered and full of cracks, unsuitable for the scale of Borglum's ambition. The search for a new canvas began. Borglum spent weeks scouting the Black Hills by plane and on horseback. He was looking for a mountain with a solid, sheer face, one that would catch the morning sun, maximizing its visibility and dramatic effect. He found it in a peak known to the local Lakota people as the Six Grandfathers, or Cougar Mountain. It was later renamed Mount Rushmore after Charles E. Rushmore, a New York attorney who had visited the area on a prospecting trip years earlier. This mountain had everything Borglum needed: fine-grained, durable granite and a southeastern exposure that would be bathed in sunlight for most of the day. The choice, however, was not without profound controversy. For the Lakota Sioux, the Black Hills, or Pahasapa, are sacred land. They are considered the heart of everything that is, a place central to their creation stories and spiritual life. A treaty in 1868 had promised this land to the Lakota forever. But when gold was discovered in the 1870s, that promise was broken, and the land was seized by the U.S. government. So, for Borglum to choose this sacred mountain and carve the faces of the very leaders who presided over the nation that had taken the land was seen by many Native Americans as a profound desecration. It was like carving a monument to your conquerors on the walls of your most sacred temple. This deep-seated conflict is an inseparable part of Mount Rushmore's story, a layer of history that lies just beneath the surface of the granite, reminding us that the monument's meaning is far from simple. It represents patriotism to some, and a painful reminder of broken promises to others. With the subjects chosen and the site selected, the monumental task could begin. Borglum's Fab Four were selected for specific reasons, each representing a crucial chapter in the American saga. First, George Washington, as the first president and the commander of the Continental Army. He was the obvious choice to represent the birth of the nation and the foundation of American democracy. His face would be the anchor of the entire sculpture. Next, Thomas Jefferson. Borglum chose him to represent the expansion of the nation. As the author of the Declaration of Independence and the president who orchestrated the Louisiana Purchase, Jefferson literally doubled the size of the country, embodying the belief in growth and manifest destiny. His inclusion speaks to the idea of an ever-expanding horizon of liberty and opportunity. Then came Abraham Lincoln. His role was clear and vital: the preservation of the nation. By leading the country through its bloodiest conflict, the Civil War, and holding the Union together, Lincoln ensured that the nation conceived in liberty would not perish from the earth. He represents unity and the principle that all men are created equal. Finally, and perhaps the most personal choice for Borglum, was Theodore Roosevelt. Borglum had campaigned for Roosevelt and admired him greatly. He saw TR as the man who represented the development of America in the 20th century. As the trustbuster, the conservationist who established national parks, and the president who oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, Roosevelt symbolized the nation's industrial might and its growing role on the world stage. Together, these four faces were meant to tell a story. From the founding and expansion to the preservation and development of the United States, it was a narrative of progress, a visual epic of a nation's first 150 years. Carving a mountain is not like chipping away at a block of marble in a studio. It required engineering genius, incredible bravery, and a whole lot of dynamite. Borglum, drawing on techniques he learned while working on the Panama Canal, devised a brilliant and dangerous process. Over 90% of the rock removed from Mount Rushmore was blasted away with precisely placed dynamite charges. Workers, many of whom were miners out of work during the Great Depression, would be lowered down the face of the mountain in simple harnesses called bosun chairs. These brave men, known as pointers, would drill holes into the granite to be filled with dynamite. The dynamiters would then calculate the exact amount of explosive needed to remove just the right amount of rock without damaging the underlying structure. It was incredibly precise work. After the blasting, a process called honeycombing began. Workers used pneumatic drills to create a surface of closely spaced holes, weakening the granite so it could be removed with hammers and chisels. The final, delicate stage was called bumping. Using a pneumatic hammer, the carvers would smooth the surface of the faces, removing the drill marks and creating the illusion of skin. Imagine dangling hundreds of feet in the air, with the wind whipping around you, wielding a powerful, vibrating drill to shape the curve of a lip or the glint in an eye. The conditions were harsh, the work was perilous, and yet, over the 14 years of construction, not a single worker died on the job, a testament to Borglum's focus on safety, despite the inherent dangers. The project began in 1927 and spanned 14 years, plagued by constant funding shortages, political battles, and the sheer difficulty of the task. Gutzon Borglum, a brilliant but often difficult man, fought tirelessly to keep his vision alive. He battled Congress for money, feuded with his supervisors, and constantly refined his design. Initially, the presidents were meant to be depicted from the waist up, but lack of funding and time forced him to scale back to just the heads. Tragically, Borglum would not live to see his masterpiece completed. He passed away in March 1941, just months before the final carving was finished. His son, Lincoln Borglum, who had been the project's superintendent for years, took over and saw the monument through to its completion in October of that same year. And so, the granite giants were finished, 4 faces, each 60 feet high, staring out from the Black Hills. They had survived budget cuts, political infighting, and the death of their creator. They stood as a symbol of American endurance and ambition. Today, Mount Rushmore draws millions of visitors each year. It serves as a powerful symbol of the United States, a backdrop for political speeches, and a moussi on countless family road trips. For many, it inspires a sense of patriotic pride, a tangible connection to the nation's history and its foundational ideals. It's a place for reflection on the leadership and sacrifice that shaped the country. But as we've seen, its meaning is not singular. The monument stands on lands sacred to the Lakota, a permanent reminder of a painful history of broken treaties and cultural loss. The Crazy Horse Memorial, being carved just a few miles away, was started in part as a direct response to Mount Rushmore, a powerful statement that the story of this land includes other heroes and other histories. Mount Rushmore is a place of duality. It is a celebration of democracy and a symbol of conquest. It is a masterpiece of art and engineering, and a scar on a sacred landscape. It represents the best of a nation's ideals, while also embodying its deepest contradictions. Perhaps its true power lies in its ability to force us to confront these complexities. It's not just a passive monument to be admired from afar. It's a conversation starter, carved in granite. It asks us to consider who we choose to celebrate, whose stories get told, and what legacy we want to leave behind. The granite giants of South Dakota are more than just faces on a mountain. They are a reflection of America itself, grand, ambitious, and endlessly complex. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the story of Mount Rushmore. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the stories behind the world's most incredible places. Let me know in the comments what you think about Mount Rushmore. Love to hear your perspective. Until next time, keep exploring. Long before the faces of presidents were etched into stone, this land pulsed with a different kind of life, a different story. Welcome to Chapter 2 of our journey, the land before the presidents. Imagine a time when these granite peaks stood untouched by chisel and dynamite. This was, and still is, a sacred place to the Lakota Sioux. This is Pahasapa, the heart of everything that is. It wasn't just a collection of hills. It was a spiritual sanctuary, a place for vision quests, ceremonies, and a deep connection to the Creator. The Lakota believe their ancestors emerged from a cave within these very hills, making Pahasapa the cradle of their existence. It was their church, their hospital, their home. The wind whispering through the pines carried prayers, and the streams flowing from the mountains were considered life-giving veins of the earth. This land was a vibrant ecosystem. Herds of bison, the lifeblood of the plains. Tribes rohade freely. Elk, deer, and bighorn sheep navigated the rugged terrain. The air was pure, the water was clear, and the silence was broken only by the sounds of nature. It was a place of profound balance and serenity, a world away from the industrial clamor that was beginning to echo across the rest of the country. But that tranquility was fragile. The whispers of gold in the Black Hills started to grow louder. Soon, a trickle of outsiders became a flood. Explorers, driven by the doctrine of manifest destiny, charted the unknown territories. They were followed by miners, their eyes gleaming with the promise of fortune, their pickaxes ready to tear into the sacred ground. These were men like Horatio and Ross, who in 1874, as part of an expedition led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, found the first flakes of gold in French Creek. This discovery was a seismic shock. It violated the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, which had guaranteed the Lakota ownership of the Black Hills in perpetuity. But the lure of gold was too strong for treaties to hold. The Black Hills gold rush began, and with it, a period of immense tension and conflict. The serene landscape, once a place of spiritual retreat, became a battleground. The Lakota, led by figures like Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull, fought fiercely to protect their sacred Pahasapa. They saw the miners, not just as but as desecrators, violating the very heart of their world. The influx of settlers brought more than just mining equipment. They brought new towns that sprang up almost overnight, places like Deadwood, a rowdy, lawless frontier town filled with prospectors, gamblers, and outlaws. The natural serenity of the hills was shattered by the sounds of saloons, stamp mills, and conflict. The tension was palpable, a clash of two entirely different worlds. On one side, a culture deeply intertwined with the land, seeing it as a living, breathing entity. On the other, a culture that saw the land as a resource to be exploited, a commodity to be bought and sold. This was the Black Hills on the eve of transformation. A sacred landscape, steeped in millennia of tradition and spirituality, now stood at a crossroads. The forces of industry and expansion were gathering, and a monumental idea was beginning to form in the mind of a man named Robinson, an idea that would forever change the face of Pahasapa. The stage was set for one of the most ambitious and controversial projects in American history. The land of the Lakota was about to become the canvas for the presidents. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next chapter of our story. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're diving deep into the incredible story behind one of America's most iconic landmarks. And today, we're kicking off Chapter 3. A Dream in the Hills. Get ready to meet the man whose bold vision truly set everything in motion. Our story brings us to Don Robinson, a name you absolutely need to know. He was a dedicated and passionate historian for South Dakota, a man deeply invested in his state's future. Now, at the turn of the 20th century, South Dakota, while beautiful, wasn't exactly a global tourist hotspot. Don Robinson saw this not as a limitation, but as an enormous opportunity. He had a radical, almost unbelievable idea, something truly monumental that he believed could change the game entirely. Imagine this. A vast, awe-inspiring sculpture carved directly into the rugged Black Hills. His vision was clear and singular, to bring tourists, and with them prosperity and recognition, to South Dakota. He wasn't thinking small. He was thinking big, bold, and unforgettable. He knew that to put South Dakota on the map, they needed something so spectacular, so uniquely American, that people from all corners of the globe would feel compelled to witness it. Now, it's fascinating to look at how his idea evolved. Initially, Don Robinson's mind wandered to figures deeply rooted in American Western lore. He imagined colossal carvings of legendary Western heroes. Think about it. The adventurous spirit of Lewis and Clark, trailblazers who mapped the American frontier, or the iconic showman and frontiersman, Buffalo Bill Cody. These were the names swirling in his head, figures who embodied the rugged individualism and expansive spirit of the West. He envisioned these titans immortalized in stone, a testament to their contributions and a beacon for visitors. But here's where the story gets even more exciting. Don Robinson wasn't just dreaming. It was Adur. He didn't keep this audacious idea to himself. He began to share it, to champion it, to rally support. And guess what? His ambitious idea, this seemingly outlandish concept of carving heroes into a mountain, actually caught national attention. People started talking. Newspapers began to run stories. The sheer audacity and imaginative scope of his proposal began to ripple through the country. It was a testament to his passion and belief that something truly extraordinary could happen right there in South Dakota. He understood the power of a narrative, the allure of a grand statement. He knew that a monument of such epic proportions wouldn't just be a local attraction. It would be a national treasure, drawing eyes and hearts from far and wide. He wasn't just promoting a sculpture. He was promoting an experience, a journey into the heart of America itself. So, as we move forward in this incredible journey, remember Don Robinson. He was the spark, the initial dreamer, the man who dared to imagine something truly colossal, something that would not only transform a landscape but also capture the spirit of a nation. His early concepts, while different from what ultimately came to be, laid the essential groundwork for one of the world's most recognizable and revered monuments. He had the courage to look at the Black Hills and see not just rock, but a canvas for history, a stage for dreams. It's truly inspiring to see how one person's imaginative idea, fueled by a deep love for their state, can ignite a movement that leads to such a monumental achievement. What started as a historian's vision to boost tourism evolved into something far greater, a symbol of American resilience, leadership, and aspiration. Don Robinson's dream, born in the quiet hills of South Dakota, quickly outgrew its initial scope and began to resonate across the entire nation. His relentless efforts to garner support, to paint a vivid picture of this future wonder were crucial. He wrote letters. He spoke to anyone who would listen. He tirelessly advocated for his cause. It's a powerful reminder that even the grandest projects often begin with a single, passionate individual. His persistence demonstrates that sometimes the most revolutionary ideas need a dedicated champion to bring them to light. Think about the sheer scale of what he was proposing. To envision transforming an entire mountain face into a work of art takes a level of foresight and courage that is truly remarkable. He didn't just want a sculpture. He wanted a landmark that would stand the test of time, an enduring symbol that would tell a story for generations to come. He understood that while Lewis and Clark or Buffalo Bill were great figures, the idea itself had an even greater potential to capture the national imagination. And this is just the beginning of how that dream started to take shape. It's a journey filled with twists, turns, and incredible dedication. So, stay tuned because next time, we'll delve into who else got involved, and how Don Robinson's initial vision started to morph into the masterpiece we know today. Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this amazing historical adventure. If you loved learning about Don Robinson's pivotal role, please give this video a big thumbs up. Share it with your friends. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next chapter. We've got so much more history to uncover together. See you next time. Have you ever looked at a mountain and seen a canvas? One man did, and his vision would forever change the American landscape. Today, we're diving into the story of the sculptor who carved the sky. After the initial idea for a Black Hills monument started to gain traction, the project needed an artist. Not just any artist, but someone with the audacity to dream on a geological scale. Enter Gutzon Borglum. Now, if you think Mount Rushmore is dramatic, wait until you hear about the man who created it. Borglum wasn't some quiet, contemplative artist working in a dusty studio. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of passion, ambition, and ego. Born in Idaho to Danish immigrants, he had a restless spirit and an unshakable belief in his own genius. Before he ever laid eyes on the Black Hills, he had already taken on a project of monumental proportions. The Confederate Memorial on Stone Mountain in Georgia. His time at Stone Mountain was tumultuous, to say the least. It was there he honed his techniques for large-scale carving, but it was also where his explosive personality and artistic disagreements led to his dramatic firing. He famously destroyed his models and fled the state, with a warrant out for his arrest. But this setback didn't crush Borglum. It only fueled his desire for a project that would be entirely his, a legacy that no one could take away. So, when the invitation came from South Dakota, Borglum saw his chance. He arrived in the Black Hills in 1924, a man with a monumental chip on his shoulder and a vision burning in his mind. The original idea proposed by Don Robinson was to carve local heroes of the West figures like Red Cloud, Lewis and Clark. It was a fine idea, a regional tribute. But Gutzon Borglum didn't do fine. He didn't do regional. He thought bigger. He surveyed the Granite peaks and saw something more than a local landmark. He saw Stage 4, a national epic. He declared that the monument shouldn't just celebrate the West. It should celebrate the very soul of America. Ambición, shrine of democracy. In Borglum's mind, cowboys and explorers, while important, were not the enduring symbols of the nation's ideals. He argued that the carving needed figures who represented the founding, expansion, preservation, and unification of the United States. He wanted presidents. He wanted the faces that defined the first 150 years of the American experiment. This was a radical pivot. It transformed the project from a tourist attraction for South Dakota into a national pilgrimage site. Borglum's idea was to carve for colossal heads: George Washington, the founder; Thomas Jefferson, the expansionist who purchased the Louisiana Territory; Abraham Lincoln, the preserver of the Union; and Theodore Roosevelt, the trustbuster and conservationist who ushered America into the 20th century. It was a brilliant, almost egomaniacal stroke of genius. Borglum wasn't just proposing to carve a mountain, he was proposing to sculpt the very narrative of American history into the granite. He was a master promoter and understood that this grander vision would be far more compelling for securing the national funding and support the project desperately needed. He chose a mountain known as the Six Grandfathers to the Lakota, a site with its own deep spiritual significance. Ignoring Theodore Borglum, so only his canvas, he renamed it Mount Rushmore. His vision was set, he had the personality to push it forward, the artistic skill to design it, and the political savvy to sell it to a nation. The stage was set for one of the most ambitious artistic and engineering feats in human history. The sculptor who was run out of Georgia had found a new mountain to conquer. Antisteme. He was determined to see it through to the end. And that's the story of the man behind the mountain, a complex, brilliant, and difficult character who believed that art could be as big as a country's ambition. What do you think of his decision to change the theme from Western heroes to presidents? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this chapter of the story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next episode, where we'll talk about the dynamite, the danger, and the incredible engineering it took to bring Borglum's vision to life. See you next time. Ever wondered who picked the faces on Mount Rushmore and why? It wasn't random. Not by a long shot. The sculptor Gutzon Borglum, along with a historian named Don Robinson, had a monumental task. How do you capture the entire spirit of a nation in just 4 faces? They weren't just picking popular presidents. They were choosing titans who represented distinct, crucial chapters of American history. It was about telling a story, a grand narrative of 150 years, carved into a mountain for eternity. So, who made the cut and what did they stand for? First up, the obvious choice. George Washington. He's the father of his country. You go and tell the story of America without the man who led the revolution and became its first president. He represents the very birth of the nation, the foundation upon which everything else was built. Choosing Washington was about honoring the struggle for independence and the establishment of the republic. He's the bedrock, literally and figuratively. Next, we have Thomas Jefferson. If Washington represents the birth, Jefferson represents the growth and the ideals that fueled it. He was the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, the document that laid out the nation's core philosophy of liberty and self-governance. And let's not forget the Louisiana Purchase. Under his presidency, the country doubled in size, opening up vast new territories for exploration and settlement. Jefferson embodies the spirit of expansion and the philosophical dream of freedom for all. His inclusion signifies the nation's intellectual and territorial growth. Then, the story takes a somber but critical turn with Abraham Lincoln. His face on that mountain speaks to the nation's darkest hour and its ultimate triumph. Lincoln represents preservation. He held the country together through the brutal Civil War, ensuring that the Union, forged by Washington and expanded by Jefferson, would not perish from the earth. Moritan dat Lincoln stands for equality. With the Emancipation Proclamation, he took a monumental step towards fulfilling the promise of freedom that Jefferson had written about. His presence on the monument is a powerful reminder of the cost of unity and the ongoing struggle for true equality. Finally, we have the fourth, and perhaps most debated face, Theodore Roosevelt. Why him? Borglum saw Roosevelt as the man who ushered America into the 20th century. TR represents the nation's development and its emergence as a modern world power. He was a trust buster, fighting against corporate monopolies to protect the common man. He was a conservationist, setting aside millions of acres for national parks and forests, preserving America's natural beauty. And he oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, a monumental engineering feat that projected American influence across the globe. Roosevelt symbolizes America's industrial might, its conservationist conscience, and its growing role on the world stage. So when you look at those 4 faces, you're seeing more than just presidents. You're seeing a timeline carved in granite. Washington, the birth. Jefferson, the expansion of land and ideals. Lincoln, the preservation of the Union and the fight for equality. And Roosevelt, the growth into a modern global power. Together, they tell a powerful, dynamic story of the first 150 years of the United States. It's a testament to the vision of Borglum and Robinson, who understood that a monument this grand needed to represent not just men, but the very soul of a nation. It's a story of struggle, growth, and enduring ideals, etched forever in the heart of the Black Hills. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the story behind Mount Rushmore. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories hidden in plain sight. Let me know in the comments which of the 4 president stories resonates with you the most. See you in the next video. Welcome back to our series, where we're uncovering the incredible story behind one of America's most iconic landmarks. Today, in Chapter 6, we delve into the mountain itself. What made this specific granite peak in the Black Hills of South Dakota the perfect canvas for such a monumental work of art? Let's explore the perfect mountain. When the sculptor Gutzon Borglum first set out to find a location for his colossal carving, he wasn't just looking for any old cliff face. He needed something truly special. A geological masterpiece that could withstand both the ravages of time and the immense undertaking he envisioned. The search was long and arduous, spanning several states and countless potential sites. But the moment Borglum laid eyes on this particular mountain in the Black Hills, he knew his search was over. So, what was it about this mountain that captured his imagination? First and foremost, the rock itself. The mountain is composed of Honey Peak granite, an exceptionally hard and fine-grained stone. This was crucial. A softer rock would erode too quickly, and the fine details of the presidential faces would be lost to the elements within a few generations. Borglum estimated that the granite of Mount Rushmore would erode at a rate of only 1 inch every 10,000 years. This meant his creation wouldn't just be a monument for his time, but for millennia to come. It offered the permanence he craved, a legacy literally set in stone. Another key factor was the mountain's orientation. Its massive southeastern face was a gift from nature. This positioning ensures that the sculptor is bathed in direct sunlight for most of the day, from early morning until mid. This natural lighting is like a spotlight, accentuating the contours and features of the faces, making them pop with dramatic shadows and highlights. Imagine if it faced north. The sculpture would be in shadow most of the day, appearing flat and lifeless. The sun's daily journey across the sky brings the faces of Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln to life. Then there's the sheer scale and elevation. The mountain towers at an impressive 5,725 feet above sea level. This height not only provides a majestic backdrop but also lifts the sculpture above the surrounding tree line, ensuring it's visible from miles away. It stands distinct and dominant in the landscape, a beacon in the Black Hills. Borglum needed a canvas large enough to contain his grand vision, and this mountain offered a vast, solid, and largely unblemished granite face, free of major cracks or fissures that could compromise the integrity of the sculpture. He had found a block of stone worthy of carving giants. The stability was paramount. The core of the mountain was solid, a single, massive piece of granite that had endured for over 1 billion years. It was a foundation you could trust. Now, here is a fantastic piece of trivia that adds a layer of delightful irony to the whole story. How did this mountain get its name, Mount Rushmore? You might think it has some deep, historical significance tied to the region or its native heritage. The truth is much more modern and, frankly, quite amusing. The mountain was originally known to the Lakota Sioux as the Six Grandfathers or Cougar Mountain, names that held deep spiritual and cultural meaning. But its modern name comes from a chance encounter in 1885. A prominent New York lawyer named Charles E. Rushmore was in the Black Hills on a business trip, inspecting mining claims in the area. While out with his guide, a local prospector named Bill Shalee, Rushmore pointed to the imposing granite peak and asked, "What's the name of that mountain?" Shalee, perhaps, with a bit of a straight face, replied something to the effect of, "It's never had a name. But we'll name it after you now. We'll call it Rushmore Peak." It started as a joke, a casual, spur-of-the-moment naming by a local guide for a visiting city slicker. Charles Rushmore himself thought it was funny and went along with it. He would later recount the story to his colleagues back in New York. The name, born from a joke, just stuck. Over time, Rushmore Peak evolved into Mount Rushmore, and it started appearing on official maps and documents. Rushmore, the lawyer, even became a significant financial supporter of the project later in life, donating $5,000, which was a substantial sum back then. Isn't that just incredible? A mountain that held profound spiritual significance for the Lakota people for centuries was whimsically renamed after a New York lawyer who was just passing through. And then, by a twist of fate, This same mountain, bearing this almost accidental name, was chosen to become the site of a national shrine, a symbol of American democracy and ideals. This blend of irony and destiny is what makes the story of Mount Rushmore so compelling. It's a story of geological perfection meeting human ambition. A story where an ancient, sacred peak gets a modern, comical name, only to become one of the most famous and recognizable landmarks in the entire world. The mountain wasn't just a passive backdrop for Borglum's work. It was an active participant. Its solid granite, its sun-kissed face, and its towering presence were all essential ingredients. And its peculiar name, born from a joke between a lawyer and a prospector, became forever linked with the faces of 4 of America's greatest presidents. The perfect mountain wasn't just found. It felt like it was waiting for a sculptor with a vision bold enough to see faces in its stone, and waiting for a nation ready to embrace its story. A story that began with a joke and ended in a masterpiece of engineering and art. It's a testament to how history is often a series of fortunate accidents, grand plans, and unbelievable coincidences all rolled into one. The choice of Mount Rushmore was no accident. It was the result of a deliberate, scientific, and artistic search. But the name, that was pure, wonderful, historical serendipity. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey. The story is far from over, as the real challenges were just beginning. If you're enjoying this deep dive, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. We do love to have you with us as we continue to explore the making of this American icon. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of Mount Rushmore. Last time, we explored the monumental task of selecting the 4 presidents. Now, let us delve into the mind of the man who dared to dream it all, Gutzon Borglum. This is where the story gets truly fascinating, because what you see on the mountain today is just a fraction of the epic vision Borglum originally laid out. Imagine standing at the base of the Black Hills, not just looking at 60-foot heads, but at 4 towering figures, carved from the waist up. That was Borglum's initial plan. He didn't just want portraits. He wanted a pantheon of American giants. Washington, with his hand on his lapel, embodying the founding of the nation. Jefferson, holding the Declaration of Independence. Lincoln, with his characteristic, contemplative pose. And Teddy Roosevelt, the rugged individualist, completing the quartet. It was a vision of narrative sculpture on a scale the world had never seen. Borglum's sketches from this period are absolutely breathtaking. They reveal an artist not just thinking about sculpture, but about storytelling. He envisioned a massive entablature, a giant panel of granite carved next to the figures. This panel would be inscribed with a brief, powerful history of the United States, starting with the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and highlighting 9 pivotal moments in the nation's first 150 years. Think of it as a giant, stone textbook for future civilizations. He wanted the monument to be self-explanatory, to communicate its purpose and meaning across millennia. But the ambition didn't stop there. Perhaps the most intriguing part of Borglum's grand design was the Hall of Records. This was his answer to the question of permanence. Borglum was obsessed with the idea that his work would endure, that it would speak to humanity 10,000 years from now. He worried that future generations might not understand who these figures were or what they represented. What if language changed? What if history was lost? So, he conceived of a secret chamber, a grand hall to be carved deep inside the mountain, directly behind the president's faces. This wasn't just some small closet. It was planned to be a magnificent repository, 80 feet tall and 100 feet long. Inside, he planned to place bronze and glass cabinets containing the foundational documents of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. He wanted to include biographies of the 4 presidents and a detailed history of the country. To ensure this knowledge survived, he planned to have it all inscribed on aluminum panels, a metal he believed would last for eons. The entrance to this hall would be a majestic, 800-foot granite staircase, ascending the talus slope to the pile of rock debris at the mountain's base. His vision was a pilgrimage site, a sacred archive protected by the mountain itself. Borglum saw himself not just as an artist, but as a custodian of history, creating a time capsule for the ages. This obsession with permanence was the driving force behind every decision he made. He wasn't just carving stone, he was trying to carve meaning into eternity. He famously said he wanted to create art that would speak for 1,000 generations. He looked at the pyramids of Egypt and the great monuments of antiquity and saw how their original purpose had been lost to time. He was determined that Mount Rushmore would not suffer the same fate. The Hall of Records was his ultimate solution. It was the key to ensuring that the story of America, as he saw it, would be preserved forever. He imagined a distant future where people might stumble upon this colossal monument and, by discovering the Hall of Records, unlock the entire history and ideals of a great nation. This wasn't just sculpture. It was a legacy project of unparalleled ambition. So why don't we see these full figures? Where is the grand entablature? What happened to the 800-foot staircase leading to the Hall of Records? Well, the simple answer is a collision between grand artistic vision and harsh reality. The challenges of funding, engineering, politics, and time itself began to chip away at Borglum's masterpiece. The dream of waist-up figures proved too complex and expensive. The entablature was started but then abandoned due to unforeseen cracks in the granite. And the Hall of Records, well, that's a story for our next chapter. Borglum's initial plans show us a monument far grander, far more detailed, and far more narrative-driven than the one we know today. It was a vision born of immense patriotism, artistic ego, and a profound desire to cheat time itself. While the finished memorial is undeniably awe-inspiring, knowing Borglum's original dream adds a whole new layer of depth and even a touch of melancholy to the story. We see not only what was achieved, but also the ghost of what might have been. Join us next time as we explore the immense challenges and bitter compromises that forced Borglum to scale back his epic vision, and we'll uncover the fate of the secret Hall of Records. You won't want to miss it. Thanks so much for watching. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story of Mount Rushmore, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. We'll see you then. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our incredible journey through history. Today, we're diving into a pivotal moment, a true turning point in the creation of an American icon. We're finally reaching Chapter 8. Carving begins all the way back in 1927. Get ready, because this is where things really start to get explosive. Imagine standing in the rugged, majestic Black Hills. The air is crisp, the landscape is ancient, and then, suddenly, an earth-shattering boom reverberates through the valleys. The first blasts of dynamite echo, not in destruction, but in the birth of something magnificent. This wasn't just any construction project. This was a monumental artistic endeavor, etched into the very fabric of the mountainside. It's hard to fathom the sheer scale and audacity of this undertaking. Think about it. Massive charges of dynamite, carefully placed, were used to sculpt the faces of presidents onto a granite mountain. This wasn't some gentle chiseling to start. It was a powerful, almost violent introduction to the world's largest sculpture. The Black Hills, once a quiet sentinel, now buzzed with a new kind of energy, a symphony of progress and raw power. The visionaries behind this project, especially Gutzon Borglum, understood that to create something so grand, they needed to think big, and that meant embracing the power of explosives. But it wasn't just about blowing things up. It was about controlled demolition, a careful dance between raw force and meticulous planning. Every blast was calculated, every charge precisely measured, to remove tons of rock with an almost surgical precision. And who were the unsung heroes making this happen? The workers? These were men of incredible courage and skill, many of whom were gold miners who brought their expertise from the depths of the earth to the dizzying heights of the mountain. Picture them, hundreds of feet high, suspended precariously from ropes, dangling against the vastness of the granite face. There was no comfortable scaffolding here, no easy platforms. It was just man, mountain, and machine, battling the elements and the sheer scale of the task. Their lives quite literally hung by a thread, day in and day out. Imagine the wind whipping around you, the sun beating down, or the bitter cold biting at your exposed skin, all while you're tasked with operating heavy equipment or carefully placing explosive charges. These weren't just laborers. They were mountaineers, engineers, and artists all rolled into one. performing an incredibly dangerous ballet in the sky. The tools and techniques they developed were revolutionary for their time. Beyond the dynamite, they used jackhammers, drills, and the very ropes that held them aloft as integral parts of their carving process. They had to invent solutions to problems no one had ever faced before. How do you move immense quantities of rock from such heights? How do you ensure safety when working in such extreme conditions? Every day was a challenge, a test of ingenuity and perseverance. And danger, it was a constant companion. Falling rocks, equipment, malfunctions, the inherent risks of working with explosives, and the dizzying heights themselves meant that every single day required absolute focus and unwavering courage. Yet, the team worked with a profound sense of purpose, driven by Borglum's vision and their own dedication to creating something truly monumental. It's a testament to their skill and safety protocols that, despite the immense risks, not a single life was lost during the carving of the faces. Now, here is a mind-blowing fact that really highlights the ingenuity of this project. Over 90% of the carving of Mount Rushmore was done with dynamite. Let that sink in. This isn't just about making big holes. It's about shaping intricate features, noses, eyes, lips, with high explosives. This allowed them to remove vast quantities of rock quickly and efficiently, setting the overall form of the president's faces. But here's the critical detail. While dynamite did the heavy lifting, shaping the mountain in broad strokes, the final touches, the incredible precision and detail that make the faces so lifelike, were achieved with meticulous hand tools. After the dynamite removed the bulk, workers would come in with pneumatic drills, chisels, and even fine hand tools to sculpt the subtle contours, the expressions, and the unique characteristics of each president. This combination of brute force and delicate artistry is what makes Mount Rushmore so extraordinary. It's a perfect metaphor for human endeavor, using powerful technology to achieve a grand vision, but then refining it with a careful, dedicated touch of skilled hands. It's not just a sculpture. It's a story of innovation, bravery, and artistic precision on an unprecedented scale. The journey of carving Mount Rushmore is truly one of the most incredible stories of human ambition and engineering. These initial blasts in 1927 weren't just the beginning of a carving. They were the first thunderous declaration of a dream taking shape, one explosive charge at a time, followed by the painstaking work of dedicated artisans. What an incredible chapter, right? It just goes to show you what amazing things people can accomplish when they combine vision, grit, and a whole lot of dynamite. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical adventure. If you loved hearing about the explosive start to Mount Rushmore, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting chapter. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Ever wonder who actually carved those famous faces into the mountain? It wasn't just one sculptor with a chisel. It was an army of nearly 400 men, a mix of hardened miners, skilled artists, and everyday locals who dared to take on the impossible. Welcome back to our series on Mount Rushmore. Today, we're talking about the real heroes of this story, the men behind the faces. Imagine hanging from a steel cable, hundreds of feet in the air, with nothing but a leather harness between you and the ground. That was a typical Tuesday for the workers of Mount Rushmore. These weren't professional monument carvers. Such a job didn't even exist. Gutzon Borglum, the lead sculptor, recruited a diverse crew. He needed miners who knew their way around dynamite, drillers who could handle the shuddering power of a jackhammer, and blacksmiths to sharpen thousands of drill bits a day. Many were just local men from the Black Hills, desperate for work during the Great Depression. They came looking for a steady paycheck, but they found a calling. Life at the Mount Rushmore camp was tough and simple. The men lived in makeshift tar paper shacks or small cabins near the worksite. The days were long, starting at the crack of dawn and ending with the setting sun. The air was constantly filled with the roar of machinery and the fine, gritty dust of granite. This dust, known as silicosis, was a silent threat, a danger the men knew all too well from their mining backgrounds. Yet, they showed up day after day, ready to face the mountain. Their primary tool wasn't a delicate chisel. It was dynamite. Over 90% of the rock, nearly 500,000 tons of it, was blasted away. This was precision work, not just brute force. The powder monkeys, as they were called, would carefully place charges to remove just enough rock without damaging the delicate features they were trying to create. One wrong move, one stick of dynamite, too many, and a nose or a chin could be gone forever. It was a high-stakes, high-stress job that required immense skill and nerves of steel. They were artists painting with explosions. After the blasts, the drillers would move in. Strapped into bosun chairs, they'd swing across the face of the mountain, their jackhammers chattering against the rock. They carved out a honeycomb pattern of holes, a technique called honeycombing, to weaken the granite. Then, using wedges and hammers, they'd carefully break away the remaining stone, getting closer and closer to the final surface. It was slow, painstaking work that demanded both strength and incredible patience. Imagine the physical toll of operating a heavy, vibrating jackhammer all day while suspended in midair. One of these men was Lincoln Borglum, Gutzon's son. He started as a pointer, a crucial role that involved transferring the measurements from the plaster models in the studio to the mountain itself. Using a complex system of plumb bobs and measuring arms, he would guide the drillers, telling them exactly where to carve and how deep to go. When his father was away, Lincoln became the man in charge, overseeing the entire project. He earned the respect of the crew not because of his name, but because he was right there with them, facing the same dangers and sharing the same hardships. Then there were men like Luigi Del Bianco. Borglum called him his chief carver. Del Bianco was a classically trained stone carver who brought the final touch of life to the monument. After the heavy blasting and drilling were done, he would be lowered down to do the most delicate work. He was the one who carved the expression in Lincoln's eyes, the subtle curve of Jefferson's lip. He understood that a fraction of an inch could change a president's entire demeanor. His artistry is what gives the faces their soulful, realistic quality. Hey, on society, I can see a face in the mountain. I can see a figure in this stone. I just have to take away the parts that don't belong. That was the magic he brought to the rock. Life wasn't all work and no play, though the men formed a tight-knit community. They shared meals, told stories, and even formed a baseball team that would compete against other local teams. This camaraderie was essential. They relied on each other for their very lives. Every man on the mountain was part of a team, whether they were running the winch house that controlled the steel cables, sharpening tools in the blacksmith shop, or dangling from a harness on the face. They had to trust the man next to them completely. This bond, forged in shared risk and pride, was as strong as the granite they were carving. They were proud of what they were doing. They knew they weren't just building another structure. They were creating something that would last for thousands of years. They were carving a shrine to democracy, a testament to the nation itself. This sense of purpose helped them overcome their fears, and there was plenty to be afraid of. The constant threat of falling rock, equipment failure, or a simple misstep was always present. The wind could whip up unexpectedly, sending them swinging wildly. The summer sun was scorching, and the winter cold was biting. Yet, they persevered. Perhaps the most incredible fact about the construction of Mount Rushmore is this. Despite the 14 years of dangerous work, the tons of dynamite, and the perilous heights, not a single worker died on the job. This is an astonishing safety record for a project of this scale during that era. Borglum was a stickler for safety, and his insistence on using high-quality steel cables and safety protocols undoubtedly saved lives. It's a testament to the skill, care, and professionalism of every single man on that mountain. They weren't just daredevils. They were professionals who took pride in their work and looked out for one another. When the project ended abruptly in 1941, due to the start of World War II and the death of Gutzon Borglum, the monument was left largely as we see it today. For the men who had dedicated years of their lives to it, the sudden end was bittersweet. They had poured their sweat, their skill, and a piece of their souls into that mountain. They went back to their lives as miners, farmers, and mechanics, but they were forever changed. They were the men who carved a mountain. So, the next time you look at a picture of Mount Rushmore, or if you're lucky enough to see it in person, look beyond the four famous faces. See the faces of the 400 workers who hung from the sky, who battled the elements, and who turned a granite cliff into an enduring symbol of America. Their legacy is not just in the stone, but in the spirit of pride, perseverance, and courage that made it all possible. Thank you so much for joining us for this chapter. The story of these men is one of the most inspiring parts of the Rushmore saga. If you found their story as incredible as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next part of our journey. We love reading your comments, so let us know what you think down below. Until next time, stay curious. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our deep dive into the incredible stories behind America's most iconic landmarks. Today, we're kicking off an epic journey as we zoom in on the majestic Mount Rushmore. And where better to begin than with the very first face carved into that granite. The man whose vision laid the groundwork for a nascent George Washington. You know, when you look at Mount Rushmore, Washington's face immediately draws your eye. Standing, proud and resolute. But it's not just about being first. It's about what he represents. For Gutzon Borglum, the brilliant sculptor behind this masterpiece, George Washington wasn't just a general or a president. He was the asterisk. Foundation, asterisk. He was the unifier, the leader who guided a diverse collection of colonies through a brutal war for independence, and then, perhaps even more remarkably, brought them together to form a single, enduring nation. That's why Borglum specifically chose to start with Washington. His image embodies that initial spark of American unity, and the very spirit of leadership that forged our country. It's fascinating to think about how much care and precision went into that first carving. Imagine Borglum standing hundreds of feet above the ground, looking at this colossal mountain. He knew that Washington's face wouldn't just be asterisk, a asterisk part of Mount Rushmore. It would set the asterisk tone, asterisk, for the entire monument. It was the crucial starting point, the anchor, and in a very literal sense, Washington's face actually guided the proportions for all the other figures. Borglum understood that if he got Washington right, if he captured that sense of steadfast determination and pioneering spirit, then the rest would naturally fall into place, creating a harmonious and powerful tower. The scale of this project is truly mind-boggling. Each of these faces is roughly 60 feet tall. That's like a 6-story building. And carving that first one, Washington's, was an immense challenge. They weren't just chipping away at rock. They were creating art on an unimaginable scale, battling harsh weather, dangerous conditions, and the sheer unforgiving nature of granite. Yet, through it all, Washington's likeness began to emerge, a testament to both Borglum's artistic genius and the perseverance of the hundreds of workers who made his vision a reality. Think about the message that Washington's presence on Mount Rushmore sends. It's a powerful reminder that our nation was built on principles of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. His leadership during the Revolutionary War, his willingness to step down from power when he could have easily become a monarch, and his dedication to establishing a democratic republic all resonate deeply. He wasn't just a military leader. He was a statesman, a visionary who understood the delicate balance required to create a government of the people, beat the people, for the people. So, as you gaze upon George Washington's face on Mount Rushmore, whether in person or in photos, remember that it's more than just a stone carving. It's a symbol. It's a testament to the birth of a nation, to the ideals that sparked its creation, and to the extraordinary leadership required to bring it all to fruition. It reminds us of the importance of unity, even in times of great division, and the enduring strength that comes from a shared vision for a better future. Next time, we'll delve into the story of Thomas Jefferson, the architect of our nation's foundational ideals. But for now, let's just appreciate the incredible achievement that is George Washington on Mount Rushmore. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this glimpse into Mount Rushmore's history as inspiring as I did, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you unmiss our next chapter. See you soon. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we'll be diving deep into the incredible story of a man whose vision profoundly shaped America. Thomas Jefferson. You know his face from Mount Rushmore. But did you know there's a fascinating tale behind where he ended up on that monumental sculpture? Initially, sculptor Gutzon Borglum actually started carving Jefferson to the right of George Washington. But due to some unexpected flaws in the rock, they had to blast away that section and move Jefferson to Washington's left. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the challenges and sheer determination involved in creating such an iconic landmark. More importantly, It reminds us that even with grand plans, sometimes you have to adapt and find a new path to achieve your vision. And in many ways, that mirrors Jefferson's own journey and impact on a young America. So, why is Thomas Jefferson etched into that mountain, alongside Washington, Roosevelt, and Lincoln? What made him so indispensable to the narrative of America? It boils down to two monumental achievements and the powerful philosophy behind them. He was the primary author of the Declaration of Independence and the architect of the Louisiana Purchase. These two acts, seemingly disparate, are profoundly linked by a singular theme: the spirit of expansion. Not just geographical expansion, but the expansion of American ideals, possibilities, and self-government. Let's start with the Declaration of Independence. Imagine a world where people are born into a rigid hierarchy, where kings and queens rule by divine right, and the common person has little say in their own destiny. That was the reality for much of the world. Then, in 1776, Thomas Jefferson, a young Virginian planter and lawyer, penned words that ignited a revolution and forever changed the course of human history. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These weren't just flowery phrases. They were a radical declaration of human dignity and self-determination. They challenged the very foundation of monarchical power and asserted that government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. Think about how truly groundbreaking that was. It was an expansion of philosophical thought, an expansion of what it meant to be a citizen, and an expansion of the rights and freedoms every individual should possess. Jefferson channeled the Enlightenment's best ideas and distilled them into a potent, accessible manifesto for freedom. This document wasn't just for America. It became an inspiration for democratic movements worldwide, a beacon for people yearning for liberty. The Declaration laid the ideological groundwork for a new nation. But how would that nation grow and fulfill its promise? This brings us to Jefferson's second monumental contribution, the Louisiana Purchase. Fast forward a few decades to 1803. Jefferson is now president. The young United States is thriving, but its western border is the Mississippi River. Beyond that lay a vast, unexplored territory, Louisiana, controlled by France, a formidable European power. At first, Jefferson simply wanted to secure American access to the port of New Orleans, crucial for farmers in the burgeoning western states to transport their goods. Napoleon, surprisingly, offered to sell the entire territory. This presented Jefferson with a massive dilemma. He was a strict constructionist of the Constitution, meaning he believed the federal government only had powers explicitly granted to it. The Constitution didn't say anything about purchasing vast tracts of land from foreign powers. Yet, the opportunity was too immense to pass up. It would double the size of the United States overnight, secure access to the Mississippi, remove a powerful foreign presence from America's borders, and provide seemingly endless land for future generations of Americans. In an act of pragmatism that stretched his own constitutional philosophy, Jefferson went through with the purchase. For a mere $15 million, the U.S. acquired over 828,000 square miles, extending from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. This wasn't just a land deal. It was a visionary act that cemented America's future as a continental power. It was the ultimate embodiment of the spirit of expansion. The Louisiana Purchase wasn't without its complexities. Of course, it immediately raised questions about the fate of Native American tribes, the expansion of slavery into new territories, and the challenges of governing such a vast and diverse landscape. These were difficult questions that would shape American history for generations. But, from Jefferson's perspective, it secured the future, creating a republic of farmers he so idealized, with ample land for generations to come. So, when we look at Thomas Jefferson on Mount Rushmore, we're seeing more than just a president. We're seeing the author of the Declaration, the man who articulated America's core ideals of liberty and equality, and we're seeing the leader who, through the Louisiana Purchase, dramatically expanded the physical boundaries of that nation, opening up new possibilities and solidifying its place on the world stage. He represents the audacious spirit of a young nation, constantly striving to grow, to explore, and to define what it means to be free. His legacy is complex, as are all great historical figures. But his contributions to American growth and ideals are undeniable. He set the stage for a nation that would continue to expand, both geographically and philosophically, always reaching for a more perfect union. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into Thomas Jefferson's monumental legacy and the spirit of expansion he embodied. If you found this insightful, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more historical content, and let me know in the comments what other historical figures you'd like us to explore. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello history lovers, and welcome back to our deep dive into the story of Mount Rushmore. Today, we arrive at chapter 12, focusing on a figure who represents the very soul of the nation, Abraham Lincoln. His face, etched into the granite of the Black Hills, is a powerful reminder of America's most profound trials and its enduring spirit. As we've explored the creation of this monumental sculpture, you might be surprised to learn that Lincoln was the last of the three central figures to be completed. George Washington was dedicated first, followed by Thomas Jefferson. It wasn't until September 17, 1937, that Abraham Lincoln's likeness was officially dedicated, a testament to the immense effort and time required to bring each president to life on such a grand scale. Look closely at Lincoln's sculpture. Gutzon Borglum, the sculptor, poured immense detail and emotion into this carving. Notice the deep-set eyes, the furrowed brow, and the solemn, almost weary expression. This wasn't an accident. Borglum intentionally crafted Lincoln to reflect the immense weight he carried during the Civil War. It's as if the mountain itself is feeling the sorrow, the determination, and the resolve of a leader steering a nation through its darkest hour. The lines on his face are more than just carved stone. They are the fault lines of a country torn apart and the steady hand that guided it toward healing and reunification. This portrayal speaks volumes about Borglum's personal admiration for the 16th president. For the sculptor, Lincoln was more than just a historical figure. He was the ultimate symbol of American ideals. Borglum saw in Lincoln the embodiment of equality, the unwavering belief that all men are created equal, a principle Lincoln championed and fought to preserve. He revered Lincoln's perseverance, his ability to lead with grace and strength through unimaginable adversity. This deep respect is why Lincoln's face is positioned so prominently, gazing out over the landscape. Borglum wanted every visitor to see Lincoln and remember the struggle to preserve the Union and the fight for freedom. It was a message about national unity, chiseled for eternity. Now, let's talk about the technical marvel of carving such emotion into rock. To create that famously textured beard and the depth in Lincoln's eyes, the workers used a technique called honeycombing. They would drill a series of closely spaced holes to the desired depth, then use chisels and hammers to break away the small pieces of granite between the holes. It was a painstaking, delicate process, especially when you consider they were often suspended hundreds of feet in the air. Imagine the skill required to carve a subtle expression on a face that's 60 feet tall. This process allowed for a level of detail that makes Lincoln's face appear lifelike and full of character, even from miles away. It's a fusion of raw power and artistic finesse. One of the most poignant features of the Lincoln sculpture is its incompletion, specifically his left ear. While the rest of his face is finely detailed, the ear remains a rough block of granite. This wasn't an oversight. The project ran out of funding before every detail could be finished, and with Borglum's death in 1941, his son, Lincoln Borglum, made the difficult decision to cease further carving to preserve the existing work. In a way, this unfinished ear adds another layer of symbolism. It represents the unfinished work of the nation, the continuous journey toward a more perfect union that Lincoln himself championed. It's a humble, silent acknowledgement that the work of democracy and equality is never truly done. Think about the placement. Lincoln is positioned to the right of Washington, looking out alongside the father of the country. This juxtaposition is incredibly powerful. Washington founded the nation on a revolutionary idea of liberty, and Lincoln preserved it when that idea was tested by fire. Together, they represent the bookends of America's foundational story, the birth and the rebirth of the Union. Jefferson, representing expansion and the philosophy of democracy, is tucked beside them, while Theodore Roosevelt, the trust booster and conservationist, looks toward the future. The four faces together tell a cohesive story of America's journey, with Lincoln serving as the central, unifying anchor. For Gutzon Borglum, including Lincoln, was non-negotiable. He believed that any monument dedicated to the spirit of America would be incomplete without the man who saved it. In his writings, Borglum often referred to Lincoln's great soul, and he felt a profound connection to Lincoln's story of rising from humble beginnings to lead the nation. He wanted the sculpture to inspire future generations, to serve as a physical reminder of the virtues of leadership, honesty, courage, and an unbreakable commitment to the nation's founding principles. In Lincoln's stony gaze, Borglum immortalized the resilience of the American spirit. The dedication ceremony for Lincoln's sculpture was a major event. On that day in 1937, Senator Edward R. Burke of Nebraska spoke, declaring that Lincoln's face on the mountain would serve as an eternal plea for unity. And it has. For decades, millions of people have stood before this monument, looking up at that solemn, thoughtful face, and contemplating the sacrifices made to keep the United States whole. It's a place of reflection, a history lesson written in stone, and a tribute to the leader who, in the nation's greatest crisis, appealed to the better angels of our nature. So, as we conclude our chapter on Abraham Lincoln, we see more than just a carving. We see a story of struggle, of a nation's conscience, and of a leader's profound love for his country. Borglum didn't just sculpt a face. He sculpted an ideal. He captured the soul of the Union and placed it high in the mountains for all to see, a timeless beacon of hope, unity, and perseverance. It stands as a permanent tribute to the man who saved the nation, ensuring that his legacy and the principles he stood for will never be forgotten. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey through the history of Mount Rushmore. I hope you found this look at Abraham Lincoln's sculpture as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do not miss our final chapter on Theodore Roosevelt. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep exploring. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving headfirst into the story of a true American icon, a man whose larger-than-life presence still looms over us, literally etched into the very fabric of our nation. We're talking about Theodore Roosevelt, often called the modern American. Just imagine for a moment that rugged, determined face, partially carved into the shadowed side of a colossal mountain. You know the one I mean, right? Mount Rushmore. It's more than just a magnificent sculpture. It's a testament to his enduring legacy, a visual cue that he helped shape what America would become. But how did he earn a spot among such esteemed company? Let's peel back the layers of this incredible figure and explore what made him so utterly transformative. Roosevelt was a whirlwind of energy and ambition from the moment he stepped onto the national stage. He was a man of action, a doer, someone who believed deeply in the power of progress and the potential of the American spirit. He wasn't content with the status quo. He wanted to push boundaries, challenge convention, and build a stronger, fairer nation. One of his most profound impacts, and one that resonates deeply with us today, was his pioneering vision for environmental preservation. Before Roosevelt, the idea of setting aside vast tracts of wilderness for future generations was almost unheard of. But he saw the beauty, the majesty, and the crucial importance of America's natural landscapes. He understood that these wild places weren't just resources to be exploited, but treasures to be protected. He championed the creation of an astonishing number of national parks, forests, and wildlife refuges. Think of Yosemite, Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, places we now cherish and flock to in awe. Roosevelt didn't just visit these places. He fought for them, ensuring that they would remain pristine and accessible for everyone, forever. He practically invented the concept of public lands as we know it, instilling in the American consciousness a sense of stewardship for our natural heritage. He wasn't just a president, he was America's first great conservationist, leaving a green legacy that continues to inspire and sustain us. But Roosevelt wasn't just about preserving the past. He was relentlessly focused on shaping the future. He looked at the booming industrial landscape of America and saw both incredible potential and significant problems. The rise of massive corporations, often called trusts, had led to monopolies, stifling competition and, in many cases, exploiting workers and consumers. This is where his famous trust busting came into play. He wasn't against big business per se, but he was vehemently against unfair business practices. He believed in a level playing field where small businesses could compete, and ordinary Americans wouldn't be exploited by unchecked corporate power. He used the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up powerful monopolies, earning him the nickname the Trust Buster. He took on giants like Standard Oil and the railroad trusts, sending a clear message that no entity, however powerful, was above the law or beyond the reach of public accountability. This was a radical idea for its time, fundamentally reshaping the relationship between government, business, and the average citizen. He aimed to ensure economic justice and prevent the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a few. And then the rest, the colossal feat of engineering that forever changed global trade and naval strategy, the Panama Canal. Roosevelt recognized the immense strategic and economic benefits of connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. He saw an opportunity to cut shipping times dramatically, boost American trade, and solidify the nation's standing as a global power. He pursued the project with characteristic vigor and determination, overcoming immense diplomatic and logistical challenges. It was an undertaking of epic proportions, requiring incredible engineering prowess, political will, and a sheer refusal to give up. The construction of the Panama Canal was a monumental achievement, a testament to human ingenuity and Roosevelt's unwavering vision. It literally reshaped global geography and economics, making America a more central player on the world stage and ushering in a new era of international commerce. So, when we look at Theodore Roosevelt, we see a complex, dynamic figure who truly embodied the spirit of the new America. He championed industrial progress, pushing for technological advancements and economic growth. But critically, he balanced this with a profound commitment to environmental preservation. He was a man who embraced modernity, understood the power of industry, but also recognized the vital importance of protecting our natural world. He stood for a nation that was strong and innovative, yet also just and responsible. He tackled the challenges of his era head-on, from corporate monopolies to global infrastructure, leaving a lasting imprint on how America views its resources, its economy, and its role in the world. He truly was a bridge between the old and the new, a leader who shaped the 20th century and continues to influence our understanding of American identity today. What an incredible legacy, right? It just goes to show how one person's vision and determination can create ripple effects for generations. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. If you found this dive into Theodore Roosevelt's life as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next historical adventure. We love hearing your thoughts, so let us know in the comments what you think about Roosevelt's impact. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving deep into a topic that could have stopped one of America's most iconic landmarks dead in its tracks. How Mount Rushmore was funded. Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a project, only to have a global economic crisis threaten to derail everything. That's exactly what Gutzon Borglum and his incredible team faced during the Great Depression. It wasn't just a challenge. It was a monumental struggle, and the story of how they overcame it is truly inspiring. You see, building Mount Rushmore wasn't just about carving faces into a mountain. It was about ambition, perseverance, and, let's be honest, a whole lot of money. When Borglum first conceived this colossal project, the world was a very different place. But as the 1920s roared into the 1930s, the economic landscape shifted dramatically. The stock market crashed, banks failed, and millions lost their jobs. This wasn't just a local issue. It was a worldwide catastrophe, and it hit the United States particularly hard. So, how on earth do you keep a multi-million-dollar sculpture project going when people are struggling to put food on the table? That's the million-dollar question. Or rather, the multi-million-dollar question. The initial funding for Mount Rushmore came from a mix of sources. There were private donations, which showed incredible faith in Borglum's vision from individuals and organizations. These early supporters truly believed in the power of this monument to inspire and uplift. But as the Depression deepened, private pockets became shallower. People simply didn't have extra money to donate to a monument, no matter how grand. This meant Borglum and his supporters had to look elsewhere, and their gaze turned firmly towards Washington, D.C. is where Borglum's legendary charisma and relentless lobbying skills really came into play. He was not just an artist. He was a master politician and a persuasive orator. He understood that to keep his dream alive, he had to convince the nation's leaders that Mount Rushmore was more than just a sculpture. It was a symbol of hope, resilience, and American spirit. Securing government funding during the Great Depression was an uphill battle, to say the least. Every dollar was scrutinized, every project debated. Congress was understandably focused on relief efforts, job creation, and getting the country back on its feet. Yet Borglum, with the backing of key figures like South Dakota Senator Peter Norbeck, tirelessly argued that Mount Rushmore was, in fact, a job-creating project. He highlighted that it employed local workers, injected money into the local economy, and would eventually become a major tourist attraction, bringing long-term economic benefits to the region. He framed it as a public works project, much like dams or roads, but with an artistic soul. This argument resonated, especially with President Franklin D. Roosevelt's administration, which was implementing massive public works programs to combat unemployment. The project received significant federal appropriations, primarily through the Public Works Administration, PWA, and later, the Works Progress Administration, WPA. These were programs designed to provide jobs and stimulate the economy through infrastructure and construction projects. So, in a way, Mount Rushmore became a massive, artistic WPA project. This government support was absolutely crucial. Without it, the dream would have undoubtedly crumbled. It wasn't always a smooth road, though. There were constant battles over budgets, delays in funding, and political wrangling. Imagine being Borglum, trying to manage a team of carvers, engineers, and laborers, all while constantly having to justify your expenses and fight for every penny in the nation's capital. It truly speaks to his unwavering dedication. Of course, with large sums of money and high-profile projects, controversies are never far behind. Mount Rushmore was no exception. There were constant debates about the cost of the project, especially during a time of such economic hardship. Critics questioned whether carving faces into a mountain was the best use of taxpayer money when so many Americans were suffering. There were accusations of financial mismanagement, though none were ever substantiated. Borglum himself was known for his strong personality and sometimes clashed with funding, committees, and government officials. He was a visionary, but visions often come with a price tag, and not everyone was always on board with that price. Political debates also swirled around the project. Some saw it as a grand, unifying symbol, while others viewed it as an extravagant undertaking. The choice of presidents, Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln, was debated, with some suggesting other figures. But Borglum, with his artistic vision and political savvy, largely held his ground. He firmly believed these four represented the birth, growth, development, and preservation of the United States, and he fought passionately for his choices. Despite all the controversies, the arguments, and the sheer economic weight of the Depression, the work on Mount Rushmore continued. Each day, the dynamite blasted, the drills whirred, and the sculptors chipped away at the granite. The perseverance of Borglum and his team, coupled with the critical government funding and enduring private support, kept the dream alive. It's a powerful testament to the idea that, even in the darkest of times, grand visions can come to fruition with enough determination, advocacy, and a bit of help from unexpected places. The story of Mount Rushmore's funding is not just about money. It's about the resilience of the American spirit, the power of a shared dream, and the sheer force of will of one man who refused to give up. The next time you see those majestic faces on Mount Rushmore, remember the incredible journey they took, not just from rock to sculpture, but through one of the most challenging periods in American history. It's a reminder that even when things seem impossible, with enough perseverance and belief, dreams can indeed be funded and realized. Thank you so much for joining me today for this fascinating dive into Mount Rushmore's financial history. If you found this as interesting as I did, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories, and let me know in the comments what other historical projects you'd like us to explore. Your support means the world to us. Did you know that hiding behind the stoic faces of Mount Rushmore lies a secret, a hidden chamber, a dream left unfinished by its creator, Gutzon Borglum? This isn't just a fun fact. It's a chapter of American history, tucked away in the stone itself. Borglum wasn't just carving presidents. He was trying to create a time capsule for humanity. His grand vision was for a magnificent hall of records, a vast chamber carved deep into the granite right behind Abraham Lincoln's head. Imagine walking through a grand entrance, 80 feet high, into a repository holding the very soul of America. What was supposed to go inside? Nothing less than the foundational texts of the nation. Borglum planned to store the original Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. He also wanted to include bronze and glass cabinets filled with artifacts detailing America's history, from its founding principles to its scientific achievements and artistic triumphs. He even planned to carve reliefs depicting pivotal moments in American history in place, busts of other significant American figures within the hall. It was meant to be a message to the future, a way to explain the meaning of America to civilizations thousands of years from now. So, why haven't you heard of this grand hall? Why aren't tourists lining up to see it? Well, like many ambitious dreams, it was cut short. Borglum started blasting the tunnel for the entrance in 1938, carving a 70-foot-long passage into the rock. But then, complications arose. The government, which was funding the project, told him to focus on finishing the faces first. They were worried about the escalating costs in the timeline. Borglum, ever the determined artist, fought to keep his dream alive. But the outbreak of World War II and a lack of funding put an indefinite hold on the Hall of Records. Then, in 1941, Gutzon Borglum passed away, leaving his grand vision for the Hall of Records as just an empty, unfinished tunnel in the mountainside. His son, Lincoln Borglum, took over and completed the presidential faces. But the dream of the secret chamber died with his father. For decades, this empty void behind the monument was just a footnote in the story of Mount Rushmore, a what-if that lingered in the Black Hills. But the story doesn't end there. Borglum's idea was too powerful to be forgotten entirely. In the late 1990s, the spirit of his vision was finally honored. In 1998, a project was completed to partially fulfill his dream. While the Grand Hall was never finished, a repository was placed inside the entrance of that original tunnel. Inside a titanium vault, they sealed a collection of 16 porcelain enamel panels. These panels aren't the original documents Borglum wanted, which were deemed too fragile to move. Instead, they contained the inscribed text of the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. They also include a biography of Gutzon Borglum, a history of the carving of Mount Rushmore, and an explanation of why each of the 4 presidents was chosen. It's a sort of user's manual for the monument, designed to last for millennia. This vault is sealed by a 1,200-pound granite capstone. The inscription on it reads, "Let us place there, carved high, as close to heaven as we can, the words of our leaders, their faces, to show posterity what manner of men they were. Then breathe a prayer that these records will endure until the wind and rain alone shall wear them away." These were Borglum's own words. So, while you can't go inside this secret chamber, it's inaccessible to the public for preservation reasons. It's incredible to know it's there. It's a time capsule waiting for a distant future. A final, poignant tribute to the man who carved a mountain. The next time you look at Mount Rushmore, remember that there's more than meets the eye. There's a secret story, a hidden dream, and a message to the future, sealed in stone. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of America's greatest hidden secrets. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next adventure. See you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey through the history of Mount Rushmore. We're now at a pivotal and somewhat somber moment in the story. Chapter 16. The death of the master sculptor and the final, abrupt touches to this American icon. As the calendar turned to 1941, Gutzon Borglum, the fiery visionary behind the mountain, was 73 years old. He had poured nearly 2 decades of his life, his passion, and his relentless energy into carving those granite faces. The project was tantalizingly close to his grand vision. He had successfully brought Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt to life on a scale previously unimaginable, but the mountain and time itself were about to have the final say. In early 1941, Borglum underwent a minor surgery. It was supposed to be a routine procedure, but complications arose. On March 6, 1941, Gutzon Borglum, the man who dared to sculpt a mountain, passed away. The news sent shockwaves through the Black Hills and across the nation. The driving force, the artistic genius, the stubborn negotiator who had kept the project alive through countless crises, was gone. The future of Mount Rushmore hung in the balance. Would his dream die with him? The responsibility, the immense weight of this unfinished masterpiece, now fell upon the shoulders of his son, Lincoln Borglum. Lincoln was no stranger to the mountain. He had grown up in its shadow, working alongside his father since he was a teenager. He'd started as a pointer, a crucial role in transferring the models to the rock face, and had been promoted to superintendent of the project years earlier. He knew the dynamite, the drills, and the vision. He was his father's right-hand man, but taking over was a daunting task. Lincoln not only had to grieve his father, but also immediately step into his enormous shoes, managing the crew, the finances, and the artistic direction. He was determined to honor his father's legacy and see the project through to a respectable conclusion. He knew the work wasn't finished, but he also faced a harsh new reality. The world was changing rapidly. By 1941, the drums of war were beating louder and louder across Europe and the Pacific. The United States, while not yet officially in World War II, was shifting its priorities, its resources, and its manpower towards national defense. The appetite for funding a massive art project, even one as patriotic as Mount Rushmore, was dwindling fast. Federal funding, the lifeblood of the monument, was drying up. Congress officially pulled the plug. The remaining funds were to be used only for the final, essential touches. There would be no more major carving. This was a critical turning point. Lincoln Borglum had to make a difficult decision. His father's grand design included carving the presidents down to their waists. It also called for a massive hall of records to be carved into the canyon behind the faces, a repository for America's most important documents and history. But with limited funds and the impending war, this was impossible. Lincoln had to accept that the grander vision would remain unrealized. His focus shifted from expansion to preservation and refinement. The goal now was to make the monument presentable and officially declare it complete. It was a pragmatic, necessary choice. He had to ensure that what had been created would endure, rather than risk leaving it in a visibly unfinished state. So, the final phase of work began, not with grand explosions, but with meticulous refinement. Under Lincoln's direction, the crew spent the next 7 months cleaning up the sculpture. They erased tool marks, smoothed surfaces, and refined the details of the faces to the extent that the budget would allow. It was a race against time and money. Every day brought the project closer to its final, unavoidable end. On October 31st, 1941, just a little over a month before the attack on Pearl Harbor would officially plunge the United States into World War II, all work on Mount Rushmore ceased. Lincoln Borglum and his team laid down their tools for the last time. The monument was declared complete. The faces, as we know them today, were finished. There were no torsos, no hall of records filled with documents, no grand inscription as Gutzon had planned. What remained was the raw, powerful, and iconic image of the 4 presidential heads, emerging from the granite as if they had always been there. In a way, the abrupt ending gave the monument a unique power. It focuses all attention on the faces, on the expressions of leadership and determination that Borglum so skillfully captured. Perhaps the lack of bodies makes it feel more mythic, more elemental. Lincoln Borglum, though he never received the same level of fame as his father, played an indispensable role. He provided the steady hand that guided the project to its conclusion in the most turbulent of times. He ensured his father's work was preserved and presented to the world, securing its place in history. He honored his father's dream by knowing when to stop. And so, the carving of Mount Rushmore, a saga of artistic ambition, political struggle, and incredible engineering, came to a quiet close. The mountain fell silent, the dust settled, and the 4 great faces were left to stare out over the Black Hills, a permanent testament to a father's audacious dream and a son's dutiful legacy. It stands today not just as Gutzon Borglum envisioned it, but as history, circumstance, and his own son shaped it. Thank you so much for joining us for this chapter. The story of Mount Rushmore is filled with these incredible twists and turns. If you're enjoying this deep dive, please hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. We'll see you then. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're journeying back in time to one of America's most iconic landmarks, not to see its creation, but to explore its vibrant life. Asterisk after asterisk. The final chisel blow. We're talking about Mount Rushmore, post-completion, and how this incredible monument transformed from a mountain carving into a living symbol of American spirit. Imagine the atmosphere in October 1941. The carving was finally complete. After 14 years of tireless effort, immense engineering challenges, and artistic vision, Gutzon Borglum's dream was realized. While Borglum himself had passed away earlier that year, his son Lincoln Borglum saw the project through to its finish. There wasn't one grand, single dedication ceremony, as some might imagine for such a monumental undertaking. Instead, Mount Rushmore was dedicated in sections as each president's face was completed. The final touches in 1941 marked the full realization of Borglum's vision, culminating in a series of events and widespread recognition that cemented its place in the national consciousness. The public reaction was nothing short of awestruck. People had followed the carving's progress for years, through newsreels and newspapers, witnessing the gradual emergence of these colossal faces from the granite. When it was finally finished, the sheer scale and audacity of the project captivated the nation. It was a testament to American ingenuity and perseverance, a belief that anything was possible with enough determination. The Great Depression had just ended, and the world was on the brink of another global conflict. In such turbulent times, Mount Rushmore stood as a solid, unyielding symbol of stability and the enduring ideals of the nation. It immediately became a source of immense national pride, a tangible representation of American exceptionalism and the democratic principles its presidential figures represented. From the very moment it was complete, Mount Rushmore began its journey to becoming much more than just a magnificent sculpture. It swiftly ascended to the status of a national symbol of democracy and determination. Why these particular virtues? Well, consider the 4 presidents immortalized there: Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Each represented a pivotal era and fundamental aspect of American democracy. George Washington, the father of the country, who led the fight for independence and established the presidency. Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence, champion of liberty and expansion. Theodore Roosevelt, the progressive leader, who expanded American influence and advocated for conservation. And Abraham Lincoln, who preserved the Union during its darkest hour, fighting for equality and unity. These were not just faces on a mountain. They were towering figures who had shaped the very fabric of American governance and ideals. Their presence on Mount Rushmore serves as a constant, silent reminder of the hard-won freedoms and the continuous struggle to uphold democratic principles. The monument itself, carved out of raw granite through incredible human effort, also embodies sheer determination. It speaks to the American spirit of tackling impossible tasks, of enduring through hardship, and ultimately, of achieving greatness. This powerful combination of democratic ideals and unwavering resolve made it an instant icon. Over the decades, Mount Rushmore has become a pilgrimage site for millions, drawing veterans, presidents, and tourists from every corner of the globe. Each group brings their own unique perspective and connection to this majestic landmark. Let's talk about the veterans. For them, Mount Rushmore often holds a profound significance. Many veterans, having served to protect the very ideals represented by these 4 presidents, view their visit as a deeply moving experience. It's a place where they can reflect on their service, on the sacrifices made for liberty and democracy, and feel a tangible connection to the nation's history. You often see veterans standing proudly, saluting, or sharing stories of their service with family members, using the monument as a backdrop for remembering their commitment to the country. It's a place that validates their patriotism and reinforces the values they fought for. And then there are the presidents themselves. It is a rare and humbling experience for a sitting president to stand before the colossal likenesses of their predecessors. Every president, from Franklin D. Roosevelt, who saw its early stages, to modern-day leaders, has visited Mount Rushmore. These visits are often symbolic, used to underscore themes of national unity, resilience, and the enduring legacy of American leadership. Imagine the weight of history on their shoulders as they gaze up at those faces, understanding the immense responsibility that comes with the office. It's a powerful visual for the nation and the world, connecting current leadership to the foundational figures of American democracy. They often deliver speeches from its base, using the monument as a backdrop to inspire and rally the nation. And of course, the tourists. From families on summer road trips to international visitors seeking to experience a piece of American identity, Mount Rushmore welcomes millions every year. For many, it's a breathtaking encounter with history. They marvel at the scale, the artistry, and the sheer audacity of the project. They take photos, read the interpretive signs, and engage with park rangers, learning about the presidents, the sculptor, and the fascinating story of its creation. Children, especially, are often wide-eyed, struggling to comprehend how such massive faces could be carved into a mountain. It's an educational experience, a moment of national pride, and for many, simply an awe-inspiring, natural, and man-made wonder that creates lasting memories. Mount Rushmore's impact extends far beyond its physical presence. It's a central figure in popular culture, appearing in countless films, TV shows, and advertisements. It's a shorthand for America itself, instantly recognizable worldwide. This constant presence in media further reinforces its status as an undisputed national treasure. The site is also a place for national remembrance and celebration. Throughout the years, it has hosted numerous events, commemorations, and even 4th of July celebrations, drawing massive crowds. These gatherings reinforce its role as a communal space where Americans can come together to celebrate their shared heritage and values. The evening lighting ceremony is particularly moving, as the 4 presidents are dramatically illuminated against the night sky, accompanied by a narrative about their significance. It is an experience that evokes a deep sense of patriotism and connection to the nation's story. But its journey hasn't been without its complexities. The land on which Mount Rushmore stands is deeply sacred to the Lakota Sioux, who consider the Black Hills, or Pahasapa, to be their ancestral and spiritual homeland. The monument's location is a source of ongoing discussion and reflection regarding treaties, indigenous rights, and the contested narratives of American history. Recognizing and understanding these different perspectives is crucial to appreciating the full story of Mount Rushmore, encouraging us to engage with history in a thoughtful and comprehensive way. It reminds us that history is often multifaceted, and that a national symbol can hold different meanings for different communities. Despite these important ongoing conversations, Mount Rushmore continues to endure as a powerful symbol. It challenges us to think about leadership, sacrifice, and the evolution of American ideals. It inspires determination, not just in monumental carving, but in overcoming challenges in our personal lives. And as a society, it stands as a testament to the idea that even the most ambitious dreams can be realized through perseverance and vision. From its dedication as each face emerged, to its current status as a beacon of democracy and determination, Mount Rushmore has captivated hearts and minds for generations. It's a place where history comes alive, where the past connects with the present, and where the future is inspired by the monumental achievements of those who came before. It's a constant reminder of the strength and resilience of the American spirit. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this dive into Mount Rushmore's life after completion as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe for more captivating content, and let me know in the comments what other historical landmarks you'd like us to explore next. Your support helps us keep bringing these stories to life. See you in the next video. An often misunderstood, the Native American perspective on iconic American landmarks, specifically Mount Rushmore. You know, we grow up seeing images of Mount Rushmore, those magnificent presidential faces carved into the Black Hills of South Dakota. For many, it's a symbol of American ingenuity, national pride, and the very spirit of the nation. It represents democracy, leadership, and the grand narrative of American history. But what if I told you there's a much deeper, more complex story etched into those same rocks? A story of broken promises, cultural erasure, and profound pain. That's right. For the Lakota people, who are the original inhabitants of this land, Mount Rushmore isn't a symbol of pride, but a painful reminder of injustice. The Black Hills, or Pahasapa, as they are known in Lakota, are considered sacred. They are the spiritual heartland of the Lakota Nation, a place of prayer, vision quests, and profound cultural significance. Imagine your most sacred place, a place deeply connected to your ancestors, your faith, and your identity, being taken and then transformed into something that celebrates the very power that dispossessed you. That's the reality for the Lakota. The story goes back to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, a solemn agreement between the U.S. government and the Lakota and other Plains tribes. This treaty explicitly guaranteed the Lakota ownership of the Black Hills. It was supposed to be theirs forever, but then gold was discovered in the Black Hills. And as we've seen throughout history, the lure of gold often overrides even the most sacred agreements. Suddenly, the treaty was violated. Settlers flooded in, and the U.S. government moved to seize the land, leading to wars, and ultimately, the forced removal of the Lakota from their ancestral home. So, when those colossal faces of Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln were blasted into the sacred Pahasapa, it wasn't just a monumental sculpture project. It was an act that, for many indigenous people, solidified the triumph of colonial power over native sovereignty and spiritual connection. This creates a powerful, almost heartbreaking contrast. On one side, you have the national pride, the narrative of manifest destiny, and the celebration of American foundational figures. On the other, you have the indigenous pain, the memory of broken treaties, forced displacement, and the desecration of sacred land. It's a stark reminder that history is often told from multiple perspectives, and the dominant narrative doesn't always encompass the full truth or the experiences of all people. It challenges us to look beyond the surface, to understand the layers of meaning embedded in our landscapes and our histories. It makes us ask, whose history are we celebrating, and at what cost? But the story doesn't end there, swallowed by pain and injustice. Instead, from this very challenging context, a powerful act of reclaiming identity and narrative emerged. Not far from Mount Rushmore, another monumental sculpture is being carved, one that stands as a direct response and a powerful symbol of resistance and resilience. The Crazy Horse Memorial. This project, initiated by Lakota elders and Polish-American sculptor Korczak Siokowski in 1948, is an answer to Mount Rushmore. It's not just a sculpture, it's a massive undertaking that embodies hope, determination, and the enduring spirit of the Native American people. The Crazy Horse Memorial depicts the legendary Oglala Lakota warrior. Crazy Horse, riding his steed and pointing forward, is words. "My lands are where my dead lie buried," are a powerful testament to his unwavering commitment to his people and their ancestral lands. Unlike Mount Rushmore, which was financed by federal funds, the Crazy Horse Memorial is being built entirely with private donations, refusing any government money. This refusal is incredibly significant, as it reinforces the Lakota people's autonomy and their rejection of the very system that caused them so much harm. It's a statement. We will build this on our own terms, for our own people, to tell our own story. The vision behind Crazy Horse is so much more than just a giant carving. It's about creating a cultural and educational center for Native American history and heritage. The plan includes a university and a medical training center for Native Americans, alongside a museum dedicated to preserving and celebrating indigenous cultures. It's about empowering future generations, providing educational opportunities, and ensuring that Native voices are heard and amplified. It's about reclaiming their narrative, not just reacting to historical injustices, but actively building a positive future grounded in their own traditions and values. It's a project that speaks volumes about resilience, identity, and sovereignty. This duality, Mount Rushmore and the Crazy Horse Memorial, forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about American history. It pushes us to acknowledge the complexities, the triumphs, and the tragedies that have shaped this nation. It's not about erasing history, but about enriching it, about ensuring that all voices are included in the conversation. When we look at Mount Rushmore, we should also remember the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868 and the sacredness of the Black Hills to the Lakota. And when we look at the Crazy Horse Memorial, we should see not just a rock carving, but a symbol of enduring spirit, cultural pride, and a powerful vision for the future. The ongoing work on the Crazy Horse Memorial, though slow and painstaking, is a testament to unwavering dedication. It's a project that will take generations to complete. A multi-generational promise that highlights the long-term vision and commitment of indigenous communities. It reminds us that healing and reclaiming identity are not quick processes, but journeys that require immense strength, perseverance, and collective effort. It's a living monument, constantly evolving, just like the cultures it represents. Understanding these different perspectives isn't about choosing sides. It's about embracing a more complete and empathetic view of history. It's about recognizing that what one group celebrates, another might mourn. It's about learning from the past to build a more inclusive future, where the stories of all people are valued and respected. This is why visiting places like these and learning about their layered histories is so incredibly important. It expands our understanding, challenges our preconceived notions, and fosters a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human experience. So, the next time you see an image of Mount Rushmore, I hope you'll also think of the Lakota people, their sacred Black Hills, and the incredible story of resilience embodied by the Crazy Horse Memorial. It's a powerful reminder that there's always more to learn, more to understand, and more perspectives to appreciate. Thank you so much for joining me today on this journey through history and perspective. If you found this video insightful, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. We love hearing your thoughts, so let us know in the comments below what other historical topics you'd like us to explore. Your engagement truly helps us grow this community. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one. Upbeat, thoughtful music begins and fades slightly into the background. Hello and welcome back to our series. Today, we're diving into Chapter 19. Symbolism through time, and we're focusing on one of America's most iconic and perhaps most complicated landmarks, Mount Rushmore. Have you ever wondered how a massive sculpture carved into a mountain becomes more than just stone? How does its meaning shift and evolve over the decades? Well, that's exactly what we're going to explore. When Gutzon Borglum first took his chisel to the Black Hills of South Dakota in 1927, his vision was clear, at least to him. He wanted to create a shrine of democracy, a monument that would celebrate the first 150 years of American history through the faces of 4 of its most influential presidents: Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. For millions of people, that's exactly what it became. It was a symbol of American ambition, patriotism, and the enduring ideals of freedom and leadership. Think about it. The sheer scale of the project was a testament to the nation's can-do spirit, carving 60-foot-old faces into a granite mountain. It was an audacious feat of engineering and art, a powerful statement of national pride. In the early years, especially during the mid-20th century, Mount Rushmore was almost universally seen through this patriotic lens. It became a must-see destination for family road trips, a backdrop for countless vacation photos, and a powerful symbol in civics textbooks. It represented the monumental achievements of the United States. For many, a visit to Mount Rushmore was a pilgrimage, a way to connect with the grand narrative of American greatness. The monument stood for progress, manifest destiny, and the foundational principles of the Republic. It was, in essence, America carved in stone, a seemingly permanent and unshakable emblem of the nation's identity. But symbols are rarely static. As time went on, new voices and perspectives began to emerge, adding layers of complexity to the mountain's story. For the Lakota Sioux, the Black Hills, or Pahasapa, are sacred land that was promised to them in the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, only to be taken back after gold was discovered. So, for them, carving the faces of American presidents into this sacred mountain wasn't a tribute. It was a desecration. It was a painful reminder of broken treaties and a history of colonization. This perspective transforms the monument from a shrine of democracy into a symbol of conquest and cultural erasure. The very rock that holds the faces of the presidents is, for the Lakota, a stolen, sacred entity. This tension is at the heart of Mount Rushmore's evolving meaning. It's not just a symbol of patriotism anymore. It's also a symbol of conflict, of contested history. The monument forces us to ask difficult questions. Whose history is being celebrated, and whose is being ignored or overwritten? The land itself holds these two conflicting narratives simultaneously. You have the story of American expansion and democracy on one hand, and the story of indigenous displacement and spiritual significance on the other. It's a powerful illustration of how one landmark can mean vastly different things to different people, depending on their history and perspective. And it's not just about the land. The choice of the presidents themselves has also come under scrutiny. While they are celebrated for their roles in building the nation, modern historians and activists point to the more complicated aspects of their legacies. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were slave owners. Abraham Lincoln, while credited with ending slavery, also presided over the largest mass execution in U.S. history, that of 38 Dakota men in 1862. And Theodore Roosevelt, a conservationist, also held views on race and expansionism that are deeply problematic by today's standards. So, the monument, intended to be a simple celebration of great leaders, now also serves as a starting point for conversations about the complex and often contradictory nature of these historical figures. It is a reminder that heroes are rarely perfect and that history is never as simple as we might like it to be. This growing complexity is reflected everywhere in pop culture. Mount Rushmore has become a kind of cultural shorthand, used in countless films, TV shows, and advertisements. Think about the climactic chase scene in Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest. The monument is a dramatic or inspiring backdrop for a thrilling spy adventure. It's grand, majestic, and quintessentially American. Then you have movies like National Treasure, Book of Secrets, where it becomes a place of mystery and hidden history, a puzzle to be solved. In these contexts, the monument is celebrated, almost it's a part of the American adventure story, but pop culture also critiques it. In music videos and art installations, it's sometimes used to question American identity and politics. It might be depicted as crumbling or altered to include different faces, prompting viewers to think about who our modern heroes are, or should be. For example, the rock band Deep Purple famously superimposed their own faces onto the monument for their album cover. Deep Purple in rock, a playful, slightly rebellious act that co-opted this national symbol for their own brand of rock and roll defiance. It has been parodied in The Simpsons and used as a setting for dramatic confrontations in everything from superhero comics to political cartoons. Each time it appears, its meaning gets twisted, reinterpreted, and expanded. It can be a symbol of stability one moment and a symbol of controversy the next. What's fascinating is how these different meanings can all exist at the same time. A tourist can stand before the monument and feel a swell of patriotic pride, while standing not far away, a Native American activist might be protesting the occupation of their sacred land. One person sees 4 great presidents, another sees 4 figures who represent a history of oppression. The monument doesn't have a single, fixed meaning. Instead, it's like a prism that reflects the changing values, conflicts, and conversations of the nation itself. It is a symbol of American ideals, but it is also a symbol of the struggle to live up to them. In response to the growing awareness of the Lakota perspective, the Crazy Horse Memorial, another massive mountain carving, is being constructed just a few miles away. It's a project initiated by Lakota elders to honor their own hero, a direct and powerful answer to Mount Rushmore. The existence of this parallel project further complicates the narrative. It highlights the ongoing conversation about memory and representation in the American West. The 2 monuments now exist in a kind of dialogue with each other, telling 2 very different stories about the same piece of land. One celebrates the conquerors, the other celebrates the resistance. So, when we look at Mount Rushmore today, we're not just looking at a sculpture, we're looking at a flashpoint for debates about history, art, politics, and memory. It's a symbol that has journeyed from being a straightforward patriotic icon to a deeply complex and contested landmark. Its granite faces have witnessed a century of change, and in turn, our perception of them has changed as well. It's a living symbol, not because the stone is alive, but because the ideas and arguments that swirl around it are constantly evolving with each new generation. It forces us to confront the beautiful and the brutal parts of American history, all at once. Mount Rushmore no longer just tells one story. It tells many, and that might be its most enduring legacy. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the symbolism of Mount Rushmore. It's a topic with no easy answers, But that's what makes it so important to discuss. If you found this interesting, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history and culture. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What does Mount Rushmore mean to you? Until next time, stay curious. As the sun begins its slow descent, its final rays of the day cast a warm, golden glow across the granite faces of Mount Rushmore. Here, in the quiet embrace of the Black Hills, we reach the end of our journey. Chapter 20. The faces endure. The light plays tricks on the stone, softening the hard edges, breathing a semblance of life into these colossal figures. It's as if, for a fleeting moment, we can almost see the flicker of thought in their eyes, the hint of a breath upon their lips. The air grows still, carrying only the whisper of the wind through the pines and the distant call of a bird settling in for the night. This is a time for reflection, a moment to absorb the immense presence of what stands before us. Look at them. 4 men, carved from the very heart of a mountain. George Washington, his gaze steady and foundational, the bedrock of a new nation. Thomas Jefferson, his expression a mixture of intellectual curiosity and visionary dreams, forever looking towards a future he helped to imagine. Abraham Lincoln, his features etched with the deep lines of sorrow and resolve, the weight of a divided nation still visible in the stone. And Theodore Roosevelt, his face exuding a spirit of adventure and relentless forward momentum, a testament to the untamed energy of a country coming into its own. They gaze out across time, silent witnesses to the generations that have passed beneath them. They are more than just portraits in stone. They are symbols. They represent the grand ideals upon which a nation was built: liberty, democracy, and the pursuit of a more perfect union. They embody the sheer scale of human ambition, the audacity to dream of carving a legacy that could withstand the erosion of centuries. To look upon them is to be reminded of the power of a vision, the will to transform the landscape of both the earth and society. But as the shadows lengthen and stretch across their features, another truth emerges, one that is just as important. These faces are also reminders of imperfection. They were men, not gods. They lived in complex times and made difficult, often flawed, decisions. They carried the biases of their eras and struggled with contradictions that we still grapple with today. Washington, the champion of liberty, was a slave owner. Jefferson, who penned the immortal words that all men are created equal, held others in bondage. Lincoln, the great emancipator, held complex and evolving views on race. Roosevelt, the conservationist, was also a proponent of an expansionist vision that often disregarded the rights of others. The monument doesn't hide these complexities. It invites us to confront them. The granite itself tells a story of struggle. The original vision was grander, the carvings meant to be more complete, but time, funding, and the sheer difficulty of the task left it as we see it today a magnificent, yet unfinished, testament. It's a powerful metaphor for history itself. It's never a clean, perfect narrative. It's a story of progress and setbacks, of noble ideals and human failings, of grand ambitions and the practical limitations that shape them. The quiet message of Mount Rushmore, whispered on the evening breeze, is that history is not static. It is not something that is simply carved in stone and then left to be admired. It is a living, breathing thing. It is carved in the spirit of a people, in the ongoing dialogue we have with our past. This monument isn't the final word on these men or their era. It is the beginning of a conversation. It asks us to look up and consider the legacy we have, inherited: the good, the bad, and the complicated. It challenges us to learn from their triumphs and their failures, to carry forward the best of their ideals while striving to correct their shortcomings. Think of the hands that shaped this mountain. The dream of Gutzon Borglum, a man of immense talent and equally immense ego. The sweat and courage of the nearly 400 workers who dangled from ropes, braving harsh weather and dangerous conditions. Their individual stories now part of the mountain's soul. They were miners, blacksmiths, and drillers. Ordinary men who came together to create something extraordinary. Their labor, their risks, their small, daily acts of creation are embedded in every inch of this sculpture. Their spirit is as much a part of this place as the granite itself. As the last sliver of sun disappears below the horizon, the faces recede into the deep blue of twilight. They become silhouettes against a sky dusted with the first stars. Their features blur, their individual identities merging into a single, monumental presence. In this gentle darkness, the details fall away, and only the essence remains. The enduring idea of leadership, the constant struggle for a better future, the humbling realization that we are all part of a much larger story, one that began long before us and will continue long after we are gone. The monument's quiet message becomes even clearer now, that history is carved not only in stone, but in spirit. It lives in the questions we ask, the stories we tell, and the values we choose to uphold. It is in the way we teach our children about our past, and the way we work to build a more just and equitable future. The stone endures, yes, but it is the spirit of inquiry, of remembrance, of striving that gives it meaning. Allow the quiet of this moment to settle over you. Let the coolness of the night air calm your thoughts. This is a place for gentle endings, a place to drift into reflection, or perhaps into sleep. Let the image of these enduring faces be a comforting presence, a reminder that even in the face of immense challenges, there is resilience. There is the capacity for greatness, and there is always the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to carve our own small part of the human story. The mountain keeps its watch, a silent guardian of memory and a beacon for the future. And as we close our eyes, we can feel a part of that enduring watchfulness, a sense of peace found in the long, slow perspective of history. Thank you for joining me on this reflective journey. If you found a moment of peace or a spark of curiosity here, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the stories that shape our world. Your support means everything. Until next time, may you find wisdom in the quiet places and inspiration in the grandest of sights. Sleep well.